Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. This is another edition of MMA Draft Spotlight. Right now we're talking to Frank Popolizio out there in New York, my home state, of course. He's a downstater, I'm an upstater, and that makes us totally different personalities and ways. But more importantly, he is a wrestling guy, my favorite kind of guy. Frank, how are you, bud?
I'm doing great, thank you. Hey, I'm from upstate. I think you, well, depending how where you draw the line, but we're from the Albany area, so we're pretty up there.
Yeah, no, not at all. You're over against the St. Lawrence River. I'm so far upstate, if it wasn't for Lake Ontario, I'd be Canadian.
You're like Mitch Clark.
Yes. That way. Yeah, actually, I'm Mitch Clark, John Jones, like, Matt Hamill. We're all from that way upper side. I'm from Rochester, Buffalo, and that's, anything outside of New York City is considered upstate, ladies and gentlemen, in the state of New York. Frank is considered upstate as well, but Albany is the state capital. It's way over. As you're facing it, way over on the right-hand side, not even close to me. Like, so far away, it's disgusting. Yep. Yeah. So I spent more time in Canada growing up than I did anywhere else, but the wrestling up there, Section 5, is amazing.
That's right. They do a great job.
Not bad. Let's talk about Journeyman Wrestling Club in New York. That's what you're doing right now, and talk to me a little bit about Journeyman Wrestling.
Journeyman Wrestling is an organization, nonprofit, that's dedicated to showcasing, promoting, teaching amateur wrestling across the country, in particular in New York. But we're kind of wide-reaching, and we're all over the place. Now,
right now, I also understand you're teaching wrestling at a jiu-jitsu school as well. Is that correct?
That's correct. We're teaching adult wrestling, and essentially they're using it in the MMA component. So it's the newest facet that we've kind of jumped into, but it's been working really well.
Now, my understanding is you have just over 250 kids in your wrestling program. That's just the kids, or does that include the adults you have at the BJJ school as well?
No, that's just, well, when we say kids, we say essentially we're dealing from middle school all the way up to high school. So we have about 250 of that age group. And then the new part, essentially, I'm going to a jiu-jitsu school to teach the adults. And there's, on a given day, we probably have 20, 30 guys in that class.
When I was wrestling at the University of Oklahoma, right when I got done, I became one of the assistant coaches, and I started a kids program at USA Stars underneath Patrick Burris, who wrestled but was a judo Olympian. I only had like 75 kids, and I had to have 3 assistant coaches. There's 4 of us. 250 kids. How many assistants do you have?
Well, we have a good staff, and essentially what we do is we break it up. There's certain nights that we're dealing with specific age groups, and other nights that we're doing, whether it's freestyle or folk style. Actually, that you bring it up, we just lost one of our staff members. Sadly, Jeff Blatnick was our international style coach, and he just was stricken last month or in late October, and it passed away.
I mean, what a story Blatnick's story was. Geez, beats back cancer, gets a gold medal in the Olympics, and then just a storied life, and absolutely one of the best role models and one of the best men that wrestling has ever had in any style. And anywhere in the world, like there's guys from Russia and Germany and back, Blatnick wrestled during the time when it was East versus West Cold War action. Yep. Blatnick was loved by everybody, even the guys he beat, and that's an amazing.
Very selfless guy, very selfless. Helped a lot with the amateur wrestling world, and during the process, you realize he was a gentleman. He never ever lost his composure. He was always, really an advocate and an ambassador to the sport.
You will never be able to fill that space that you lost with Blatnick.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That is a tough one. You'll get some guys that are talented and, they know wrestling. And Jeff was more than that, though. He was, when we talked about being an ambassador, he was deeply involved in amateur or USA Wrestling. He was the chairperson in New York. So that helped our club too, from a leverage standpoint, and to hear our voice, at least from upstate New York, that helped. And when you lose a guy like that, you lose all the experience that goes with it.
And what did he teach you? What did you bring into the club now that you're teaching the kids that Blatnick specifically gave to you?
Jeff was a big setup guy. He was like, make the guy move this way so that you can get him to do this, and then you can take your shot or do this, that, and the other thing. He wasn't, it wasn't so much that he was a technician. It was more of philosophy. And the other thing is he's very calm. He was very soothing to the athletes. So, guys that were getting ready to do big competitions or national level competitions, he had an uncanny way of just making them feel relaxed prior to competition, and it worked. I mean, we were starting to produce All-Americans and national champs. So,
Now,
no doubt.
there's two things that I use every day that Blatnick teaches me. One is body chess, which is he coined the phrase when I trained with him a couple of Grucker training camps back in high school. He taught me how to play body chess. Make the man move. He'll do this reaction. There's 4 reactions he'll give you. Take one of those reactions. Make him have another reaction. That's where you get your takedown. So it's like the third and fourth setup.
That's exactly in line of what my memories with Jeff are from a wrestling standpoint.
And then the other thing that we use every day, and what I want to talk to you about right now, is he coined the phrase mixed martial arts, MMA.
Yep.
You guys have come in, and you've actually produced some pretty big names that right now are in the UFC and MMA as a whole. You want to share some of those names with us?
Well, with all due respect, I got my clocks going off here in the background, so I apologize for that. But, I like to think that we inspired these guys. I don't know if we developed them. We developed them from a wrestling standpoint, but they were motivated and inspired on their own to move on to MMA. But there's no doubt from a wrestling standpoint, I'd like to say we contributed to their learning process and their development. But you got guys like Matt Riddle, who's fighting in the UFC now. He wrestled at East Stroudsburg after our club. And you got guys like Dennis Bermudez, who wrestled a little bit in Bloomsburg and then started to fight to make some money. And he wrestled with us from Saugerties High School. That guy used to drive about an hour and a half to come to practice and an hour and a half to get home in a beat-up Blazer. I don't think he's got that Blazer anymore. He's kind of doing some good things. He was on the Ultimate Fighter show and made it to the finals, and Riddle was on the show too. We got a new guy that's actually on the show currently. His name is Matt Secor, and he's an example of one of the guys that I'm teaching at the MMA class or the adult class. A guy that didn't necessarily come through my high school segment, but did work with us on the adult level.
It's incredible the amount of guys that are coming out of there, and people forget how good New York is as a whole. How can some of the guys like myself, especially, like I'm an old wrestler, was on the U.S. team, was, wrestling college. How do we give back to the MMA, give back to the amateur wrestling through the MMA community? Like, how are we going to go back into the wrestling community and get them not only to keep wrestlers in, to get them all the way through college and all the way through the Olympics, to, get their knowledge based out there? What can we do to help out?
Well, I think we do a lot of it in our sport. We love to come back in the room and teach the next generation. We do a lot of that. I mean, it's kind of par for the course. But once these guys make it, if you will, to the next level and are a part of the UFC and things like that, I think it's important for them to come back and support some wrestling events. For instance, we just had our Northeast Collegiate Duels, which we did on November 24th, and it's one of the biggest college wrestling tournaments in the country. And we do it right here in the Albany area, in Albany, New York. And Chuck Liddell came in for meet and greet and things like that. And for all intents and purposes, it's really a charitable event for Chuck Liddell to go to. Obviously, we couldn't afford to pay him what his time is worth. These guys, their time is scarce. They're busy and they're making good money doing the right things. So for him to come back and be at a function like that, it allows that entire wrestling community to meet him, be inspired by him. Probably wouldn't have that chance if it was strictly in an MMA environment. I'm not sure kids would have the money to go and, go to a UFC fight or go to the trade show or whatever that's going on. So I think this is one example. And we've had a lot of guys. We've had guys like Matt Hughes come into our club. No, I don't mean to bring up any names here, but that you had a history with. But guys like that, and guys like yourself, just to come back in. And Josh Koscheck has been a part of our club. We've had Brock Lesnar in. Just guys that are coming in to teach wrestling in an amateur wrestling environment. and I think that's positive. And we need that. We got to continue to do that, or else we lose that connection.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This is MMA Draft. That is Frank Popolizio, and he is down there in Albany, New York. And definitely, if you get a chance to stop by, please do. The Journeyman Wrestling Club in New York. I'm Frank Trigg here in Las Vegas. We'll see you next time.
Hey,